So it's a beautiful day here in North Carolina where I am, and I'd love to get in the hot shop and blow some glass, but fortunately with this whole lockdown, that's not going to happen. But while I can't get in the hot shop, what I can do is take a couple minutes and do some turning exercises that will keep my hands nimble, that just take a handful of minutes, and you do them a couple times a week, can stop the rust from building up on your hands. So I'm going to give you a couple exercises I think have a good amount of benefit, but before I do that, I want to tell you some exercises that I don't think have much benefit. And unfortunately, one of them is what people tend to do when they first go home and grab a broomstick and start practicing turning, which is just to kind of like stand there and turn it in your hands like this, right? And the reason why I don't think that works is that there's nothing keeping you honest. So without the glass on the end of the rod to fall off center and provide some like weight and inertia and movement, then you don't know if you're doing things right or wrong. You could be turning really jerky, or maybe your hand is like bobbing up and down, or your angle's way off, all of which are going to create errors and make the glass do something you usually don't want it to do, and you have no way of know if you're doing that. So you could just be practicing doing things wrong instead of really practicing the turn. So I don't think it really works very much. I also don't think it works to like just use an armchair as a makeshift bench and try to turn on it, right? For one reason, you still don't have the glass telling you if you're doing things right or wrong, but also because there's a certain proportion to a hot chip bench, right? And it depends on the studio that you're in, but unless you have your studio bench at home, then the size is different, the height is different, the feel is different, the length of the arms is usually not going to be the same as your armchair. So I don't think you can take whatever you're practicing here and translate it into the hot shop. Now there is one like small exception to that, which I think is turning the pipe on an angle, right? Usually you get the glass really hot and you're dropping it out, maybe cutting in a jack line at the same time. It's a great move to know in the hot shop, and there's some videos that I made that deal with an aspect of this this move that you can check out on the glassblowersguide.com website. And you can kind of mimic this, and the reason why is that when you have the pipe at a real steep angle, gravity becomes less of an issue. So the glass isn't going to be falling far off center. So you still don't really have the weight and everything, but you can kind of mimic that just by squeezing on the pipe a little bit while you're turning, just like a little bit of like squeeze down here, a little friction. And then you can kind of work on the motion of your hand, which typically involves having your thumbs stay on your side of the pipe, and then your fingers just sort of do like a creepy crawl sort of thing like this, moving back and forth, kind of keeping that moving. So that's something you can practice, and you can do that just sitting on the couch watching Netflix. You don't need to pretend like you're at a bench, and there is some benefit to that. I've also seen some people put some weights on the end of like a broomstick, or basically use a dumbbell, a barbell without weights on one side. So that starts to mimic a little bit, get a little bit more real world in terms of the weight and the feel of turning something. But once again, the benefits drop off. You're a complete beginner, go ahead and start to get that muscle memory, that movement in there. But I think at a certain point, it's just not going to really help develop your skills anymore, right? So what do I suggest doing? Glad you asked. So while there is no substitute for having actual hot glass on the end of your pipe, you can keep yourself a little bit more honest by turning against something. So I'm standing here in a doorway, and I'm going to turn against the edge of the doorway, the corner of the doorway. I'm going to push the broom and just physically shoving pretty aggressively against that side of that door, and turn clockwise into the door frame while I'm turning and pushing in, and I'm kind of rotating my hips and pushing through with my arm and trying to really aggressively push the door stick into the corner of the door, right? I'm going to change angles, so sometimes I'm going to come up high and slowly and smoothly work my way down to totally horizontal, keeping the height around whatever your marver height is, right? That's kind of what we're mimicking here, is marvering. I'm also going to change up my hand position, so sometimes I'm going to have my hands pretty far towards the back, kind of pushing like that. Sometimes I'm going to come up a little bit closer and push and see how that changes your body position. And then what I'm going to do is do the exact same thing, but turning counterclockwise, but still maintaining contact with the door frame. What's really critical here also is that you are keeping the pipe at the broomstick pipe, at one specific spot, right? You're not sliding around. If you feel yourself sliding up and down, then something about your force is off. You need to be able to do this, keeping it really just in one specific spot the whole way as you're rotating. And once again, clockwise and counterclockwise, and maybe do it for like a minute going each direction. And then you're going to flip it around and do the same going the other way, and you'll see that your body posture changes. You're going to kind of torque back in. Now you're pulling more with your left hand, your lead hand, as you're driving the rod into the door frame. Once again, play around with different angles and play around with different heights, and turn both counterclockwise into the door frame as well as clockwise in this case now, away from the door frame, in all cases trying to maintain that contact. So I'm sliding around here a little bit because I'm looking at, you know, the camera and talking while I'm turning. But really focus, really drive in, and really pay attention to what your body's doing, where your feet are. Try to play around with different postures and really locking it in there. And what this is doing is, first of all, applying a force in order to keep you honest, because if you're pushing hard and your hands aren't turning really nice and smooth and moving as they should, you're going to be making jerks and stops, so you're going to be sliding up and down if you don't have a nice solid control to your hands and arms and the positioning control of the pipe. So that keeps you a little more honest, and it also mimics real-world situations that involve the marver most notably, because you want to pick a point that's basically marver height, right? Because that's kind of what we're emulating here. And then in a hot shop, this can relate directly to skills like twisting on the marver. So if you're doing like making a reticello, you have to twist counterclockwise and clockwise, and sometimes you might, you know, marver the tip of something, you know, going either direction. Sometimes you're marvering down the moil, and you're emulating all of that and that control that you need as you're doing these exercises by turning all the different directions. And even though you're not sitting down at the bench and turning, you know, on the rails, doing these exercises will strengthen your hand. You know, if you do this for like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, you know, a minute and a half or something on each direction, I think you'll probably feel a little bit of forearm burn. You'll feel like your hand's starting to get a little tired, and that strength will be applicable to when you're actually sitting at the bench. So even though you're not explicitly doing that here, just by generally strengthening your body and your control, you will hopefully see some benefits on that side as well. So of course there's no real substitute for actual glass in your hands, but this will make a difference when you actually have time to get back in the hot shop. And it's one of a couple things. Other things I would suggest are really planning out what you're going to make when you have the opportunity. Make full-scale drawings of what it is, and not, you know, not little tiny scrawls that are eventually going to be like, you know, a big thing. Make it, do a drawing of the thing that size on like notebook and keep track of it, so that you have this reference material to draw from when you're actually in the hot shop. And also think through how you're going to make those pieces, like step by step, from the gather to putting it away. Glass is what the Understanding Hot Glass video series is all about. Is that glass is this like logical material, has a logical basis for why it behaves, and if you understand it, then you really can, almost like looking in the future, you know, chart out how a piece is going to work all the way through. And so then if you had done that and you say, okay, this is what I'm doing to make this piece, and then you get in the hot shop and it doesn't work out that way, then that is a great opportunity to evaluate your understanding of the glass and learn from it, right? But without that pre-existing kind of mental model of how the piece is going to go, you're kind of flopping around, right? So making drawings, thinking through the pieces, getting plenty of rest. You know, mental health is always important, and whatever mental stresses and stuff we're bringing in the shop with us can have a huge bearing on the glass as well. But anyway, and on that note, it's a stressful time for pretty much everybody, and you know, if you're trying to work from home and watching kids and stuff like that, don't beat yourself up if you know, can't have time to, you know, make everything work out perfectly the way that you hope that it would. But this is a sort of like exercise here that you can do in 5 minutes a couple times a week that hopefully will see some benefits from. So if you can, I'd encourage you to. Otherwise, just do the best you can, you know. So we're all trying to do. But thanks to all those folks who have bought the Understanding Hot Glass video series. I really appreciate the support, and supporting you all is what I'm here to do as well. So as always, welcome the questions and comments, and look forward to seeing you in the hot shop one of these days. All right, bye-bye.